The Electronic Frontier Foundation is an organization that exists and has existed since 1990 to try to assure to humanity the right to know, which is a right that hasn't been previously promulgated because it was an impossibility, but our dream is that anybody, anywhere may have access to anything that human beings do with their minds one day, because that capacity is being given, and that can change everything. But we want to make certain that anybody who's got something to say can say it, and anybody who wants to listen can hear, and anybody who doesn't want to listen can tune out, which is an essential quality of freedom of expression, is the right not to listen. And we believe that can be conveyed by making certain that the architecture of the internet is designed in such a fashion so as to be both ubiquitous and open.
What are the threats?
Well, the powers that have been, of course. I mean, there are a lot of, outside of raw weaponized force, the principal way in which power exerts itself is by creating reality distortion fields around the control of information. You don't have to control people much if you can control what they believe. And you can control what they believe if you control what they have access to. If you can control what they can, it's just a very simple matter. The threats to the right to know are the usual powers that have been would rather that you didn't know certain things, because that's how they control you. That's why, for example, when Martin Luther came along, it wasn't just that he nailed his theses to the door, it was that he came along about the same time as Gutenberg, who could give everybody a Bible. And suddenly the Bible was not something that was strictly interpreted by the church. Actually, the Bible was something that anybody could read and figure out for himself. And that fundamentally changed the power of the church and changed the power of all social organization in Europe. And we just think, the human mind has its limitations, but we just think that humans are more likely to achieve their ultimate purpose, whatever that may be, if they have the capacity to completely explore the possibility space of what can be known. And I have a mystical belief in this, and EFF does as well. We want people to have, I'm pro-choice, but you can't make a choice unless you have all good choices are informed. Now, I would grant, I can imagine there are people who listen to me say that and say, well, yeah, what about the new reality distortion fields that spin themselves up in the rumor mill of the internet, where you've got, like people who are going around claiming that Obama's a Muslim, or that he wasn't born in America, or, any number of silly things that get spread around. And that happens, but I ultimately think that in a completely open information environment, the truth will out.
But at the same time, the distortion fields are, in order to cope with all of that information, we seek those things that confirm. The internet is criticized for its confirmation biases.
But look, what do you think mass media are about? Mass media exists to confirm the pre-existing beliefs of the masses. You're working in one. How easy is it for you to get a program on the BBC that says true things to people that they don't already believe? I think you'd have a hard time.
So is the objective to lay it out there and then let people find out?
I just, you know, I want there to be an open smorgasbord, and that anybody can roam at, and EFF has been, I think, remarkably successful in maintaining this. The Electronic Frontier Foundation as an organization and as a kind of mission that a lot of people just decided to adhere to, whether they were members or not, I think has been, if I died today, I would still feel like I did something useful.
At its core.
The web is genius.
The web is contagious.
The web is access on the world. It's the key that opens the doors.
The web is for me the connection to my friends from Germany, and
the internet is a fight in a pub.
cut.
The web is my life.
And ready, what is the web?
The web is who we are.
What do you think it is?
The web is a place to get information.
Means to you, starting with the web is?
The web is knowledge. Is that it?
The web is...
Sorry.
Ready?
Yeah.
The web is information and entertainment at your fingertips.
The web isn't going to find out where it's going to finish. I don't know where it started.
The web is everything in life, absolutely everything you can imagine life to be, crammed into a matchbox, and then you can plug yourself into that matchbox and take everything out of it whenever you like.
It can be a couple of words.
Essential but addictive.
Could you say the web is and then the thing?
The web is essential but addictive at the same time. You probably know these guys.
The web is. Hang on, let me just a bit too noisy there.
The web is possibility.
One of the most important principles for an encyclopedia is neutrality. This is the idea that Wikipedia itself shouldn't take a stand on any controversial issue. Our job is not to be a place for political commentary or persuasion, but basically just to lay out the landscape for people. So if there's a controversial issue, we try to report neutrally on what relevant and important authorities about it have said. So take as an example a hot button issue like abortion. Wikipedia, of course, is not going to take a stand on abortion, but it's going to report, that the Catholic Church position is this, and the Pope has said that, and critics have responded this way, and so on. The idea is, so if you're new to the topic and you want to know what everybody's fussing about, you can come and get that landscape. Of course, neutrality is not always easy. We are human beings, and it's serious effort. But that's one of the core principles. Some of the other principles that are really important, things like reliable sourcing. That's something the community has gotten more and more interested in over the years as the project matures. People have become less tolerant of just some random information that somebody writes down that they happen to know, and really more looking for what's your source for that. Is it do you have a scientific journal or a well-known newspaper and so on. And in fact, we've gotten very sophisticated in the community with all of our policies around what counts as a reliable source or not.
Can you talk me through that actually? Because one of the guiding principles, or rather what I've understood to be one of your inspirations for starting Wikipedia, is to create an environment that almost breaks down this ivory tower notion, this idea that there's a hierarchy, that anybody can contribute to knowledge. Yet what you're talking about here with this notion of reliable sources, a scientific journal, a peer-reviewed, can you talk me through that juxtaposition, that sort of, that controversy there?
I mean, it's interesting because Wikipedia in many ways does break down a lot of hierarchical assumptions that people have, but that was never the goal. It's not something I particularly care about one way or the other. What I care about is quality. It turns out that it's easier to get quality when you have more people participating, and when you judge the quality of someone's work on its own merits rather than paying too much attention to their credentials. At the same time, we really love when experts come. We really try to have an environment that's very welcoming of people who know what they're talking about. It's funny because we have this reputation for being very anti-elitist, but we're really not anti-elitist. We're actually quite snobby within the community, based on, you know, if you know what you're talking about and you can back it up, that's honorable, and that's really important to us. So our concepts about quality end up being very old-fashioned in a certain way. You know, we don't regard ourselves as some kind of open free speech forum where every opinion is as valid as every other opinion. We really want good work, good quality work. When we think about what counts as a reliable source, it depends very much on the context. You know, if you're looking at some, if you want to know what Yasser Arafat said, you know, in 2001, the New York Times is a very good source, and that's perfectly valid. If you are writing some very detailed entry about some concept in physics, you really want a physics journal. You want some peer-reviewed material to back it up, not an article in Time magazine. You know, if you want to write about a TV show, then maybe TV Guide is a good source. You know, and again, if you want to write about something very scientific or something very detailed in history, then you wouldn't use TV Guide as a source. So it depends on the context, and the community's been very, very thoughtful at really working through trying to figure out when is something a reliable source, for what, and so on and so forth.
It seems that this is something that's evolved over the years.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, in the early days, we didn't have a lot of policy just because it wasn't necessary. You know, when you start and someone is typing for the first time, you know, Africa is a continent, and hitting save, and that's our first entry on Africa. You know, it's very simple. You don't really need a lot of detailed policy to get started. But then the policy evolves over time. People begin to run into controversies, and then they start to think about, how do we resolve this controversy? How can we write Wikipedia so that it's neutral? And one of the best ways is to say, well, let's reach out to the sources, right? Let's just report on what the valid sources say. So that's been, yeah, it's been something that's grown up over a long period of time.